Hello, hello. It's been a while. I'm not really sure what I'm going to be talking about tonight, but I'm sure whatever it is will be strange. So, funny thought. I was, having some struggles today because I was thinking to myself, gosh, I made so much progress in certain areas, and in other areas I just can't seem to get it to work. And, like, it's not going badly, but it's like I just can't seem to get my output. I don't know how to explain it. It's like, it's like put a lot of effort in, and it's like, bam, I've got, my health is better. I may not be at the weight I want to be, but my health is better, right? And, my mood is so much better. So, but, like, on the financial side, it's not spectacular, and it's not where I want it to be, and, on the weight loss side, it's not where I want it to be, and I just think it's interesting because, for some reason, I was thinking about this experiment that someone was telling me about, how if you plop down a higher number and you drop that down before you tell somebody something. So let's say you wanted them to buy something from you, you might say, talk about something unrelated and say, hey, oh, isn't it interesting, it's like 1,000 birds on the building this morning, and then turn around and ask them what they would pay you for your lawnmower, for example. And you could do that with one person, and they'll pay more than, let's say, the next person, because for some reason their brain is anchored at a higher level, and because they're thinking 1,000, so they're thinking 1,000, and then they're doing something unrelated, and so they just end up naturally raising where they thought they would be. So I just thought it would be, I don't even know where this idea came from, just for some reason I was thinking parallel computing, and I don't know what parallel computing is, and I took a little look at it, but of course it's way too technical, and I was like, I don't know what this is, and I don't really care. But the main concept to me was this concept, what if we could anchor something higher to something lower, and then just muscle test. So if you were to say, where 10 is the highest and 1 is the least, and then muscle test it. So if we were to say, I would pick something that I think in particular that I'm really good at, let's say creativity. I feel like I'm really strong in creativity, and then check it, and if I can find something that I've got a 10 in, then I'll use that as my anchor. Maybe from here out, just keep using it as my anchor, because I know I'm solid in it. Because it's like, my theory on it would be that you would have your highest resonance in the thing that you're best at. So, the thing that just comes naturally to you. And part of this conversation was just that, it's that these things don't come naturally to me. When talking to other people that, let's say people that are millionaires, it's like it just comes naturally to them. They don't really think about it. And it's one of those things where, they don't have to work at it. They just understand it. It just comes naturally to them. It's not, there's no challenge there. They don't think about it, and, suddenly they get icy chills. It's like an afterthought. It's not even that they think, go, go, power, power, power. It's the fact that they're not really thinking about it. It just comes so naturally to them. It's like breathing. And so I was trying to figure out, okay, let's see if I can find something that is that natural to me. And to me, being creative is very natural to me. It's really easy for me to come up with different things and think of different things. And it's probably one of my strongest traits. And so I muscle tested, it was like, and I just made a statement, like, with 1 to 10 being the highest and 1 being the least. And then I muscle tested, my creativity is between a 1 and a 5. No. My creativity is between, is a 6. No. 7. No. And then up until I hit 10, and it was a 10. So in that vibration, my power level essentially is a 10 in creativity. So I'm muscle testing this, what my power level is. So, and I come back with a 10. Now, I go and I turn around and I say, okay, so for money or finance or whatever, you know, I pick a topic and I say my power level in this is a, you know, and I landed on a 6. So it's not bad, but it's definitely not great. And, you know, it's enough to just get by. It's almost like if you were to look at that in the scheme of things, I'm that guy that just gets by and just gets by with just enough to have some quality of life, which is, you know, is not totally too far off, you know, the beaten path. I wasn't, you know, what I was raised with was more, you know, a fear of money, a hating of money, and I've done so much work centered around money to clear it, to set all these new belief systems, and that's all great, but something was still going on there. It's almost like I still don't have the output to be affecting change in that particular area of my life. And so while I may not be carrying blocks, I'm also not pushing anything forward either, and manifesting what I want to with that, because there's still stuff, you know, it's almost like it just doesn't come naturally to me, so I don't have that flow. I don't have a power level that's affecting the change that I'd wanted to in that particular area. So what I tried to do was I did the 1, 2, 3 protocols on this, and what I did is I, first of all, on a piece of paper, I wrote down on the left side, which in my world, the way my brain thinks is, for me, I want my left and right hemispheres of the brain to do their work. So what I want to do is I want the left brain, which is your more logical, I want that to lock in the part of me that I resonate with without any effort. So I put that on the right side of the paper and drew a line down the middle and put it on the right side of the paper so that it would lock in for me on the left hemisphere of the brain, which is, you know, the computing side. So if I was thinking, okay, so we're really kind of like, where's the computing side? It's not the creative side. It's not the side that makes miracles happen necessarily. It's the side of the brain that does the job. It's got the data, so to speak. So if I'm thinking in terms of, okay, it's got the ability to hold the command. So if I'm saying, I want you to hold this command, I want you to hold the creative command, and this creative command is, this is where I want to get to, this is what I want you to do, you need to get this. But on the left side of the paper, I put down money. So I want to increase my power level with money. To do that, I really need to be able to access the universal store. So I need to be able to access that universal mind information to be able to make that possible, and that's the side of it that's going to go quantum. So I'm going to use these two elements to use that left brain, which is, bam, this is going to lock in the side that's even though it's on the right side of the paper, to the left hemisphere of the brain. So I'm attempting to lock down the creativity component, and then using that left hemisphere of the brain and the right side with the left side of the paper, endeavoring to use that higher consciousness component and to make that possible for me to bring that up. So what I do then is I run the protocol 1, which is just to obtain the information I need to be able to match, to bring and I make the statement that I'm going to be bringing my power level with money up to match my creative level with money, or my creative level, my creative power level. And so then I bring in the information needed to make that possible, and then I bring that into my heart space and run protocol 2 in order to help integrate that into the heart space, to bring that new information into my system in a way that's safe and healthy for me. And then protocol 3, which is the accept protocol, and then you're basically saying yes to the universe and making that active. So making it active. And that's the 1, 2, 3 protocol. It's a very generic way of explaining the 1, 2, 3 protocols, but that's basically it. So we're creating an anchor, right? Kind of like the 1,000 birds on the building, and we're bringing up. And then, so now I've set that protocol. I want to turn my power up on with money up to a 10. So I want it to be on equal footing with my creativity. I want to be completely comfortable. I don't want to think about money. I don't want to be worried about money. It's like I want to be able to flow through it without being in a state of fear. Because usually on the lower power level, you would be, you'd be in a lower state, fear state. You don't have as much power. You don't have the ability to affect as much change because you're in a lower power level. So if we anchor that and we bring it in, theoretically, that should do it. So I did that, ran it, and then I rechecked it to see what the power level was now on money, and it did test for 10. So that was interesting, like to see how that plays out. I'd like to do that with a few more things too, like weight loss or metabolism, or and since I already know I've got a strong 10, I would just keep that as your anchor, because that's the one that if you're really confident and that's a good anchor, just keep using that. I would just keep using that anchor. Why change that up? But it was just this concept that our brains can do this parallel computing where it's going out and it says, it's like a search engine. It's like, find everything that matches this for this. It'd be like putting a string into Google. It's like, show me everything that's creative with money. It's like I'm combining two things, and I'm looking to raise the power level on the money side of things to bring that way up, to match my creative flow. And it's my power with money, so my ability to command and flow through anything related to money with ease, because with creativity I know exactly how I do it, but with money I don't really know how to do it. I really wasn't trained in it as far as on a conscious level. I really wasn't. I mean, I've cleared so much stuff. You do a test for these beliefs and they're not there. It's not an issue of I'm still holding unhealthy beliefs about money. I don't actually think I am anymore. I've cleared so many. On occasion I'll find one, but there are really so many that are in the clear now. So I should be seeing more change than I am, but in noting that my power level with that was so low, and then being able to then anchor it to something that's high and bring it up. And it's interesting because there's different techniques, like there's reframing and anchoring, which isn't quite it's similar, but it's not quite the same. It's you're taking something that's crummy and then you're replacing it with something that's good, and it's very similar. In fact, it would make perfect sense, but here it's like we're actually taking something for sure and bringing that up. Like I want to bring that actual level up. So it's kind of a new spin on that, and it was kind of fun. But I also wanted to clear out any because the beliefs are great, but another challenge is you have a couple other elements there. So you have a little bit, I don't want to say sinister, but we hold things, are almost like vows, or almost like committed oaths that we've taken, that I commit to a life of poverty, and so these oaths and vows, and in some cases you could even, if you're getting into the stranger side of the world, you can say curses and a variety of other potential things where people have accepted. I mean, you never know, people get into some weird things, and you have ancestors and bloodlines that get into some could have gone down some stranger roads. So it can't hurt to just say that to do one nice clean little clearing where you're saying all my vows are complete, all my curses are finally ended, have been served, and I'm curious, I'm going to actually do some wording for that, because I'd like to have it, like there's closure there to ending all of those things, and just kind of a nice, clean, generic way. And just to see if that helps shift some stuff too. And that way, if you had anything that's just kind of binding you, that's beyond you, that you know, it might not be a bad idea to just remove that. Any pacts, any contracts, any you know, oaths, any vows, any curses, any of that crazy nonsense. Because in all honesty, what you have, unfortunately, is where you have these social agreements that these things can exist. They can exist because there isn't a social agreement out there that these things can exist. You know, so demons, the demons, you know, it's possible. I mean, you have enough people that believe in it, it's possible it could exist. It's a social contract. There's a social contract that people believe in, heaven and hell and demons, and you know, I'm not particularly subscribing to it, but people can believe in it, and who knows. But honestly, I think it's better safe than sorry. You might as well just clear for it. You might as well just make sure, because there are social agreements out there, are people out there with different cultures. We have different heritages and different lines, so most certainly can't hurt to clear for anything related to those things with respects to that particular aspect. So maybe we could call it aspect, and then you have power levels of those aspects, and then you would find your anchor aspect, and then link that, and then bring it, you want to bring the other up to it, and just using those protocols. So I think it's kind of interesting. I'd love to keep experimenting with this. It would be great to do it with something that you can physically or visibly see, maybe like weight loss, or you know, your immune system, or your gosh, I don't know. I mean, sky's kind of the limit there. You could have fun with it, but something that would be a little bit more visible, like your metabolism, you know, increase, or you know, fast metabolism, or you know, you could probably bring that power level up on those things if you wanted to target those. When writing the protocols, it's very nice because it's quantum that's being used. It's totally and absolutely possible to do a nice big fat clearing with it for the things that are pertaining to it. It may not be drilled down quite enough, but I'm thinking it should be enough of a shift to see some different, very interesting results. Turning your power level up, bam, in a certain area. And I guess you could probably even do a batch of areas. You could probably do, I mean, I don't know that I would want to do them all at once. I think there's probably a lot to be said about actually just putting the time in to actually do each specific area. I'm a fan of the batch clearing, but I think in this particular case, you really want those two things to be resonating equally. I think if you're throwing too much stuff in there, you might lose that anchor effect. So I'm not sure that I would want to just say, throw in everything, you know, throw in friendship and health and love and relationships, throw it all and match it all to this. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not saying this works yet because I haven't tested it, but it sure as heck seems like it should be plausible, given that these techniques, I mean, these are techniques they use even in negotiations. So I don't see why it wouldn't work. It's totally potentially possible. I mean, especially when you marry up. So you're marrying up techniques that are used even during negotiation tactics and psychological, you know, psychologically used techniques, and then you have marry it up with, you know, other known techniques like the reframing and anchoring thing, which, you know, that's used for, I want to say it's used pretty well, I think, in the psychology community and maybe even psychiatry communities and that type of thing. So these are different, there are different aspects, but they're just like a kind of an interesting blend, and then you blend that with the quantum and the that concept, because what you're trying to do is bring yourself, you resonate at something at a totally different level, so why not? Why can't we turn up our power level on a certain aspect? I don't see why not. I mean, you can clear for things, but usually with reframing, you know, you can, I guess technically you can do the miracle thing where you're saying you're making something possible. I guess that's true, but I would much rather have something locked in where I know with my creative side I can get things done, and I would love to have everything in my life match my aspects on the creative side. That's really something else. If I could at least open the door to that, Or even if like with anchoring, you're not going to get somebody to pay $1,000, for a used lawnmower, but you're bringing it up. So even if even if you got from a 6 to a 7 on there, that's still got to be it's still progress. You could probably do it a few more times until you could try and get it up as high as possible. At that point, if you're not getting it up higher than that, my guess is you need to do more block clearing. And it's definitely an interesting theory. I think it would be really fascinating to try this with some people and see how that goes. See, like, what's your power level in this area, and see if it can be raised. See if I can get some people to test that with me and see what happens. It's most definitely an interesting one, that's for sure. So I don't know. I'll have to experiment with this and see where it goes. I do like the idea of doing the badge clearing for people beforehand, so that you've got as much of that nonsense out of there as possible first, and then probably give them a few days, because they'll probably have some level of healing crisis. I mean, as good as it is, and it's very gentle by comparison, but you still probably want to give them a few days before I'd say, well, okay, start turning up the power level. You want to get everything cleared out of there before you probably go to do that, and then turn up the power level and see what areas you're not affecting as much change as you want to, and then start drilling down and start seeing if you can keep clearing in that area. I mean, I'm down for clearing. I can clear all day long. It's too much fun. There's always something some stupid belief you've picked up in your lifetime, somewhere, or something you just saw, on TV, or who knows what. But it's definitely an interesting concept to me. If you can anchor this stuff, and then you can essentially, in a sense, kind of reframe it. So you're anchoring it, but you're not reframing. You're anchoring it to something that you're really good at, and you're bringing it to that level, so that when you think about it, you're like, this is no big thing. This is totally easy, And then really just then you could probably spot check and just start doing some random questions related to whatever the topic was, and see if anything fails, or see how it makes you feel. Because really, it's what got me was when I was thinking about how does this make me feel, and you can feel it somewhere in your body. So it's like, if you're talking about, finances, for example, if you're struggling with finances, and you just stop for a second and think about it, it's like, where do you feel it? Is it like a pit of your stomach, or is it make your chest tight? I mean, you could just go into your body before you do that power level shift, just see if that changes. How does that feel? Where do you feel in the body? Is it gone after you shift it, or is that still there? I mean, these are some interesting questions. I would really have to explore and experiment with those and see how it makes me feel to try and do that, see if my output's changed. Interesting. I guess the only other thing I might think about is, I'm not sure what kind of output you'd want if what you're putting out is not good. It's totally possible, I bet you, that if what you're putting out there isn't good, that it might dial down, maybe. Or it could just be that your frequency is low. So I guess the question is it your output, or is it your is it your frequency, or is it both? I mean, are you emanating out? So I mean, if your whole concept about money, let's say, is horrible, and you haven't cleared any of that, and you're still not doing great with that, so maybe you have to maybe there's a way to check for your percentage of blocks. Ooh, that's a good idea. So maybe you could do a percentage of what your percentage of block is in that particular area first, and if your block percentage is really low, then perhaps increase your output. But if it's not, then maybe you would have to go back and just do more clearing there first. Fascinating. I'll have to try that with percentages. Oh my gosh. Ooh, so much to think about. Sounds exciting and amazing. I'm gonna have to play with this one. This just sounds awesome. Okay, I think that's it for me tonight anyway. I just like to put some of this stuff down and really, before I forget it. Some food for thought, though, that's for sure. Anyway,